Okay, so this is me. I'm Sarah Lewis, and I'm the director of Grow, Transform, Belong, which is a community interest company, and the organisation Penal Reform Solutions. And the aim of the session really is just to kind of share my story and share my passion, and I guess a little bit about what I want to achieve in the future and what we want to achieve in the future in terms of us as a team. So this is me. This is me when I was dinky, and I just wanted to, I guess, start right at the beginning, because in some senses you could argue that maybe I was a bit of a victim of crime even before I was kind of born. And the reason I say that is that I was a classic non-conformist, even pre-birth. So I was breech, so I didn't want to come out head first. I wanted to come out feet first. I wanted to do something different. And with that, I was externally turned by a doctor who was pretty horrific to my mother. And my mum told him to stop, and ultimately he didn't. So as a result of that, I was diagnosed at about 9 months with something called hemiplegia. So it took place as a result of a brain bleed, and it was traced when I was about 10, it was traced back through an MRI scan back to that turn, so back to that breach. So in some senses, I kind of grew up with a little bit of difficulty. I struggled walking up until about the age of 6. I had weekly physio. I had daily massages with my mum, which obviously has probably continued the passion for massages, which my husband now does for me in terms of my bad side, so my difficult side. So I've got slight paralysis along the whole side of my right side. So generally my hand and generally my feet. And the only time you'd really probably notice it is when I'm really tired. I start kind of limping a little bit and hunching forward and my posture goes. But yeah, struggled as a little kid, struggled with sports days, struggle with other things, like shaving my left armpit, for example. But as my feminism has taken over, I've stopped the need for that altogether, really. So yeah, it was a bit of a tough gig at the start. And I think the bit that really upset me about it was that my mum was actually put into a room. So once I got diagnosed with hemiplegia, she was put into a room with a bunch of, I guess, intelligent, smart men who kind of pretty much bullied her and said, "You're not going to be suing us, are you?" And she was alone and she was off guard, and she had me crying and my sister at her legs. So yeah, I guess injustice was kind of early doors for me, even before I knew that I was a prison reformer. But yeah, I guess that's when it kind of started. I then had a number of turning points along my life. So I met my husband at 16. Absolutely fell in love with him. At that time, I was quite heavily involved with the church. I wanted to be a pastor, so I wanted to be a minister, Baptist minister. I was playing music, so I played in a band, not like a cool band. I played the French horn in an orchestra, and we used to kind of travel internationally. And then I met Alistair, and it was a complete game changer. So I quit everything because I just wanted to be with him. And I'm still like that now. So we've been married 20 years, but we've been together for a bit longer than that, 25, 26 years. And that was massive for me. He's my steady, what gives me faith in relationships, I guess. He's a really lovely person. I know a lot of people on the call know him. So he was really instrumental to my life. I then had a very early experience of psychiatric care when I went and worked in the summer. I was 17 and I worked as a healthcare assistant in Farnborough Psychiatric Hospital. So Justine on the call, we were born in the same hospital, and Farnborough Psychiatric Hospital was right next to the main hospital that me and Justine were born in. And yeah, it's horrific. I worked in the elderly unit, and not only kind of witnessed ECT, which is when they kind of chuck a load of electricity through elderly people that at that time didn't seem that they were consenting to that. I got attacked on my third shift. So I very clearly remember going into a room and asking a lady called Rosie if she would like a cup of tea. And I still have that look in her eyes as she turned around, a completely different human being. And with that, she tried to strangle me. It took 4 men to get her. She was a little lady. 4 men to get her off me. Once I managed to kind of pull my way up to call the alarm. So yeah, I always remember the nurse, just very matter of fact. And I guess this kind of normalised culture that we're kind of living in prisons, maybe this normalised culture, like, brush yourself off. You need to get your Hep B jabs, because we haven't done those yet for you, because I was bleeding kind of throughout my kind of neck. we need to get your jabs for you, and then you can be back at work. I think it was a Thursday. You'll be back on work Monday. So basically, I'll give you tomorrow to sort yourself out, and then back you go. And I did. I just did what she said, and yeah, I think that was a kind of turning point for me in terms of the literally maybe 4 days later. I remember Rosie had got a medication and settled back down, and she came in and she offered me a wine gum, and she was just a lovely, sweet old lady again. And I guess it said something about mental stability and how that can kind of transform people when people are mentally unwell, and the kind of people that I guess I didn't necessarily want to work within psychiatry, but certainly wanted to work a little bit more in terms of, I guess, secure units. So the next summer, I then went and worked at Cane Hill Forensic Unit. So that was for people that became mentally unwell, were in prison, then moved into that unit. And I remember there was a psychologist there who mentored me, absolutely fundamentally important in my life. And he said, I'm not going to tell you anything about any of these men. I just want you to build relationships with them. And I remember at the end of the placement, he put me in a room and he gave me all the files. And he said, read them, read the relationships that you've built and who you built them with. And I got on really well with this old boy. Again, I love an old boy and I love an old story. And then with that, he was probably the most dangerous man on the unit. And yeah, I saw this big black burly guy, having not grown up with any diversity in my school at all. He terrified me, and he was, essentially one of the least risky people there. So a massive lesson for me in terms of being aware of my biases maybe, or being aware of difference and what impact that has on my judgment. But also the importance of building relationships and seeing people, I guess, was early seeds were planted then. I then moved, it all sounds a bit sad, but I then moved to university. I really struggled at university, and I remember the open days. I didn't get to go to the open day at Reading University because the open day I went to the day before for Brunel, I was a man. I was on the tube, and there was a man, and he basically exposed himself and started masturbating. And I was the only one on the tube. Who knows? When does that ever happen? When you're the only one on the tube? And I got really kind of scared. The lights were all going weird, and I just remembered running off the tube and this guy following me. And I got to the security guard and just said, "There's a man, oh, he's doing this to me, I don't know what to do." And he's like, "Well, what do you want me to do about love?" That real kind of like, this is what we have every day. And again, this was a suited, clearly very well paid, middle class man, which once again kind of made me think, there's maybe some kind of thing going on here with some of the injustice that I kind of feel in terms of, I guess, experiencing crime, maybe with people that you wouldn't maybe expect, I guess, in that sense. So I didn't get to go to the University of Reading open day, and I went there and I struggled to make friends. I lived with a lady who was prolific self-harmer, and at that stage was a real rescuer, just wanted to rescue people, and kind of didn't have very good boundaries. I'm sure the team are just thinking, well, you haven't really got very good boundaries now. But I really, really struggled at uni. But I left university, still just saw Alistair all the time, and then went to do my master's. And in my first day of my second year of my master's, I found out I was pregnant, hence the picture on the left. So my last lecture, this was the morning of my last lecture, absolutely massive, as big as a house. And I was working at Holloway Prison, so I was doing some research there. And I just remember kind of going in there with a bowl of fruit, because I was just eating constantly and just having all these noises around me, and all these alarms. I'm working in the kind of young women's unit there, which was just really, really hectic and really kind of really unsafe, I guess. Looking back on it, it was one of the worst prisons I've ever been in, and I've been in a lot of prisons. And just kind of thinking, this place feels traumatic, and particularly as a pregnant woman and working alongside, that time a young girl who was 17 and pregnant, same as me. Just the parallels between her and me, I just, it taught me a lot, that, I guess, that experience. So I then moved on to residential work. I spent 5 years working in the foyer, so working with homeless young people. A vivid memory of mine was this guy on his 16th birthday, literally on his birthday, getting kicked out. He had a little prefect badge and his little school uniform, coming to foyer and saying, "My mum doesn't want me to live with me anymore." I just remember us buying him a birthday cake and singing happy birthday to him, and it was just so sad. You just think, looking back on that now with a 15-year-old son, it was a tough gig, but I got on very well with people and I really enjoyed the work, and I did a lot of stuff around life skills. So I guess that was the beginning of me trying to build strength and confidence in people. And then Winchester happened. So I saw a job working in Winchester Prison within probation, doing risk assessments. And with that was just like, yes, that's what I want to do. So went for a job, would never have got it nowadays. Maybe I would have, actually, thinking about it, as we don't need interviews anymore to join prisons. I went in there and I was pretty much ripped apart by the staff. It was chaotic and pretty violent at the time, and the staff just ate me alive, mainly operational staff. I was young, so I was 23, and I was young and I was naive and I didn't know anything. So yeah, I remember many humiliations, many comments, and I kind of left there thinking, one day I'm going to go back to prisons and I'm going to make them better places. But it was instrumental for me and it was really, really difficult. But I then landed into offender rehabilitation in the community. So I did interventions for about 7 years, where I met Kaz and many of my dear friends, and we got on really, really well. It was the first time I kind of found what a good team feels like, and had an amazing experience at Hampshire. And then I was doing a group session. I'd gone for a job at the University of Portsmouth as a senior academic, not thinking I would get it at all. Again, that real imposter syndrome, early doors. And I remember going into a thinking skills program, and one of my dear friends now was actually in the program, and I said, "Oh, I've been offered this job, but I just don't know whether to take it." And I just remember them all saying, "You need to take it. You know, you can't be doing programs all the time. You need to get up there and make a difference. That's what you said you wanted to do anyway." So on the advice of my thinking skills program cohort, I resigned from probation, and then with that I went to the university. And I guess this was a place where I tried to get wiser. I got immersed with some incredible academics that were incredibly challenging and really helped me to understand and inspired me in many ways. I remember not fitting in within academia. I didn't feel I belonged really at all. I was just a bit different. I got told off for laughing quite a lot and joking around. Maybe didn't take it as seriously as maybe I should be taking it culturally. I remember going to a conference and just not understanding, well, what people are doing with all this knowledge. You've got all this amazing stuff, what's happening with it. And, that real narrative of, we'll just continue to talk about it and we'll write about it. And I kind of wanted maybe something a little bit more than that. So I started looking around. I went to Norway. I found out about Norwegian prisons and went to Norway, and essentially that was the game changer. I managed to get a week's trip out there through the university, which was amazing. And the university were just incredibly supportive of me. They gave me a little bit of money to do a 3-year research project there, looking at 3 particular prisons. And I went to Norway. There's me looking super young. You see my little hand looking all sad again. I went on my own. Never been on a plane on my own, didn't know Norwegian, didn't know, because we were co-producing and it was all about what emerged, and it was about getting people involved to design the project. I was doing a project around how to capture the key elements of an effective rehabilitative environment, but I didn't know how I was going to do it. I didn't know who was going to help me. And I didn't know anyone, and I kind of left my young kids of 6 and 4 and my husband in England, and bless them. It was pretty terrifying, to be honest with you, on day one, with everyone talking Norwegian and me thinking, oh my goodness, I feel a complete outsider. But it absolutely changed my life, and this is me sitting on the beach at Bastøy prison. And you would say my kind of head fell off. I had pretty much an identity crisis. Everything was just so calm. that it really made me think, what am I doing in my life and where do I want to go? And in some senses, I rehabilitated at Bastoy alongside the people that were living there. And the staff, I think, grew as well, which I guess is something about that kind of really therapeutic environment. So just to pause that for a minute. So I met this guy in the middle, Jan Erik. He was my researcher. We got on really, really well. And this picture on the far left, on the bottom, is by Silvieva, her name was. And I remember we had to capture a picture, and then with that underneath it say, why did it support someone's growth? And she said, well, I want to hug a prisoner. And I was like, what? No way you hugging a prisoner. That is definitely like, no way. You know, they're offenders. And I was just looking through this risk lens of probation and thinking, there's no way you should do that. And I said, well, who are you going to hug? And she said, I'm going to hug anyone. And I was just like, oh my God, like, this is horrific. So with that, we walked out, and it had been snowing, as you could see. And she came across a guy called Karim. He's the guy on the left who I got on very, very well with. He worked in the library. And she said, can I hug you, Karim? And he said, of course you can hug me. And with that, they gave each other a big bear hug. And it was the first time she just said, people need to know that they're liked. And she said, and that's why I hug them. She said, but I'm a hugger, and it's about me being authentic and me being who I am. So with that, I just became me. I didn't become this kind of risk managing assessor. I just became me during Bastoy. So as you can see there, hugging Jan Erik, and I would just tell people that I love them, which is obviously something that a lot of you guys know about me. So I wasn't able to say goodbye to Jan Erik on the last day of the visit, but he created a little video for me on the camera that he was handing back to me, because he had one of the cameras that he was doing the research with. And this was the little message he left me. So I thought I'd share it with you, because it's lovely.
Hello, Sarah. I wish you good luck with your project. And it has been nice to get to know you. And I wish you a good journey back to England. I love you.
So I left Bastoy, and then I went to another prison called Sandaker. And Sandaker was the most trusting environment I've ever been in. It was just lovely. It was small. It was perfect, really, in terms of how I kind of think we should respond to crime, I guess. And then the picture on the left I just wanted to share with you. So the guy in the yellow was a residing resident, so essentially a prisoner, you could argue. The guy on the behind in the tandem was a one-legged blind prison officer, you could call, but he wasn't called that. He was just called Philip. And they would cycle around town together every week, and he loved it. He loved cycling, and you know, the guy on the front was just like, you know, I am his eyes. And he said he's a nightmare going down the hills because he cycles really fast. But I guess it was just so symbolic, you know, like I kind of thought, you know, they weren't symbolizing trust. That wasn't the intention. It wasn't like a smart decision in that sense. It was just them, you know, behaving in a very kind of normal way. And but for me, it was about how can we start to, you know, through gestures like this, how can we symbolize, I guess, culture? And they had it all there, really. So Sandaker, I learned about trust, and I learned about belonging. A lovely group of people. I then went to the last prison. It was a high security prison, and these are just some of the pictures from it. So the one on the top left was taken by a prison officer who said, sometimes just getting a smile from a prisoner kind of makes my day. So again, me learning about the small things in life being really important. And then this little you see a picture of those kind of four little rabbits, I guess. The third rabbit is the same rabbit that's on the right here. So this was a rabbit made by a guy called Christian. He lent me his rabbit so I could take a picture of these rabbits on this rock as part of the photo project. And I dropped it. I dropped the rabbit. So he was huge Norwegian man, and I went in and I looked up to him. And I just looked at him and I showed him what I'd done. I said, I'm so sorry. And he was like, oh, I fucking hate these rabbits. and with that, that's all I heard of it. And then on my last day, they'd actually made this rabbit for me on the right. And they put a little plaster where I'd broken his ear. They put a little plaster, and then they'd given him odd socks, because that was what I was known for, this English girl with odd socks. And they gave me him, Christian gave him to me with a big smile on his face, and he's like, this is to remember us. And it was just the most loveliest present ever. And since then, you can see that I've dropped him twice. So he hasn't done very well, but he's still in my office and looking incredibly broken, but something that stands out to me. I think I'll be a racy picture. But I guess what then happened was pretty tough. So I had a bit of a tough time at university whilst I was at Haldon. I got really let down by someone who I kind of really cared about, and it really got me to question, I guess, again, that kind of identity crisis kind of came along, and I left the university as a result of that, alongside, I guess, prisoners in Haldon saying, do you know what, you need to make a difference, and you need to go back to prisons, and you need to do what you need to do. So I kind of came home, lost my head, I guess, for a second time, had a real kind of mental breakdown for probably about 5 months, quit my job the day I got back, again on the advice of some prisoners, and got this sausage dog who saved the day, got my back tattooed in terms of that kind of commitment to the kind of revolution, I guess, that I wanted to kind of create, but looking back on it, probably a little bit of self-harm going on there as well. And then with that, set up Penal Reform Solutions. So yeah, again, only on my own at this stage. I kind of didn't know anything about business. All I knew was I wanted to transform penal culture globally. So I went in. I created these principles of growth, which was all the information that I distilled from the Norwegian project, and with that, we brought in them within prisons. So the pilot was at Guy's Marsh. I just built relationships. I just was me. I really enjoyed it, and I kind of said, you know what, I just want to go in, I just want to make things better, and I'm going to serve, I've got responsibility to serve. But sorry, I've done really well to get this far, to be honest, but I didn't realise I'd get help, and loads of people helped me. They were mainly prisoners. So this is a picture of a few of the guys that just really, really helped us. One of which is obviously here today. And it was about coming together and doing things together. And we really made a difference. We had some incredible outcomes. Because people, first time I kind of sensed a real sense of belonging, I guess, in the work that I did. And it was just incredible. It was incredible to see people grow. It was incredible to see people laugh and connect and have the same kind of mission that I kind of had, really. And then it got a bit tough. So one of our dear friends, he was in the prison, and he would just paint everything. He was a lovely guy. His name was Dan. He's there on the right. He was just a real creative and wanted to work with us. And he got out, and he really struggled to settle down in the community. He got let down, I think, by probation a little bit. And I lost touch with him. He just started to become really, really distant. And he took his life about 5 months after release. And one of the reasons why we're really looking at doing some of our supported housing stuff. But we also talked about, I guess he taught us that when things go bad, we have to come together and we have to talk things through. So it's not just about celebrating the good and celebrating success. It's also about celebrating what we can learn, and celebrating people, and celebrating, I guess, when we lose something, talking that through. So we had a loss exhibition, which was really emotive, and we had a memorial session, which again was really emotive. But it was just a way in which we don't hide away from all the pain of prisons, I think, which we do sometimes. We're just going to go into automatic pilot and we scoop everyone up and the crisis is managed. But I guess growth is more about that. It's more about reflecting on what's kind of going on. That's just my dog in the background going bonkers. So I originally thought I was going to be a bit like John Howard. So John Howard is a really famous 18th century penal reformer or prison reformer. He had a horse and he used to kind of go around on his horse and he used to assess, I guess, like the inspector do now. And he was publicly recognised for his humanity and his zeal. So this dude here, I was just like, I'm going to be like John Howard, hopefully slightly kinder on the eye. for now anyway. I really wanted to be him, and I kind of got into Guy's Marsh and thought, I'm actually not going to make it. I don't think there's too much to do. It's way too difficult. So with that, I started to create a team, started to get people together, and the people that were in prison then suddenly started saying, well, maybe I can come out and live, work with you. And I was just like, wow, that would be amazing. So we started to kind of create a force. So this is our team, our force of humanity and zeal. I look really this camera's a little bit obsessed there, but yeah, they look absolutely brilliant. This was taken at our recent kind of team away day. An incredible group of people, and this idea that if we can instill humanity and zeal in others, then we can be a real force. We can be a real force that's going to drive change. So we've been working a lot. We've been working a lot in terms of not only in prisons, but also in schools, and also in approved premises. We've done the national rollout in terms of leadership training in the Middle East, as well as doing research with the Inspectorate of Probation and the Howard League. We continue to do publications, but we do them on our terms, and they're generally practitioner focused or in prisoner newspapers. And again, we're looking at creating things in Europe. So a youth mentoring program at the moment, which is going to go into 5 countries. We're doing some stuff with the Council of Europe around co-production, as well as supporting with interventions. And so for me, there's about creating these pockets of growth, a bit like we do on growth projects in prison, really. We find out where all the pockets are and we nurture these pockets. And then once we've done that, it's then about connecting them up. And I guess it's a bit like this. So this is kind of, I always talk about this with the team, it's a bit like Endgame. So you have all your superheroes and all our pockets of growth. And with that, we kind of come together. And in order to come together, we need a platform. And that's part of our mission. Our mission moving forward is about how we can kind of create a platform so that we can build revolution and when we can drive change. But I guess looking back on my life, having kind of gone through it really for the kind of first time this week, preparing for this session, it was kind of about justice because of injustice, early days. It's all about social opportunity for me, maybe because I've just been restricted a lot of my life, like maybe more physically than socially or economically, but certainly experienced a form of restriction. So for me, it's about opportunity and choice and freedom. Those are the things I really, really value. And it's about instilling that in other people. And I guess finally, of course, I'm going to say it's all about relationships because that's what I live and breathe. But for me, it's all about relationships. So yeah, I hope you like my backstory. And let's have maybe a chat in the last 20 minutes. And here's just some information if you want to kind of get involved. We've got the kind of landing page. I'm going to post it on LinkedIn and then I'm going to put it on the YouTube once I upload this magical 40 minutes of me blubbing onto YouTube. But we'd love you to get involved. We'd love you to connect or collaborate in any way, even if it's just about supporting one another and with the shared mission. So yeah, that is me.